impressive to see these young people, you know, taking these situations into their hands and just organizing. It's incredible. Way to go. So my name is Arlene Slocombe, and I'm the Executive Director of Wellington Water Watchers. One of the headlines of the recent IPCC report was, continued global warming is projected to further intensify the global water cycle, including its variability, global monsoon precipitation, and the severity of wet and dry events. It feels imperative that we immediately take stock of our relationship with water and the ways in which, at a global level and at a local level, we are responsible to water cycles. Just south of here, in Aberfoyle, is a water bottling plant owned by Nestle Waters Canada for many years. And very recently it was sold as part of a package of the Nestle Waters North American bottling operations to a private equity firm called One Rock Capital in relationship with Metropolis. The entry of the private equity into the bottled water business extends Wall Street's profiteering tentacles into Ontario and is an ominous and dangerous development. This is not a company with other expertise or commitment to the bottled water business. And when one looks into the details of the acquisition, we learn that the purchase was leveraged through junk bonds with a typical pattern of quick resale before the accumulating burden of high interest rates devour gains from the intended sale. The Ontario government must ask Blue Triton, what is your real business plan? Blue Triton has applied for a 10-year renewal of Nestle's former permit to take water for bottling in Wellington County. It seems almost a certainty that Blue Triton, because of the heavily leveraged debt situation, will not be the owner in 10 years. Given this likely scenario, Blue Triton's application for a 10-year renewal of their permit is simply not credible and must not be approved. When we add to this story the fact that water is packaged in single-use plastic bottles, almost all of which result in landfill or as litter, and have a large carbon footprint in its life cycle form from production to distribution. Plastic bottles also break down into microplastics, a growing threat to wildlife and to human life. And most importantly, just 1 hour south of Aberfoyle is the community of the Six Nations Reservation, who do not have reliable access to clean drinking water. Yet here is a private equity firm extracting water for profit on treaty lands. Permits to take water for bottling are granted without the explicit consent of First Nations, and in the case of Aberfoyle, is in direct contravention of a cease and desist order that was issued by the Haudenosaunee Confederacy Council on June 7th, 2019. Given all these scenarios, the government of Ontario has no business issuing permits for such a use in the face of the pressing scenarios we're all facing as we walk more deeply into climate change. The more alarming part to me is that this acquisition of Nestle's operations is part of a global pattern of investors seeking to make profits by controlling access to water, betting the increasing scarcity of water will make them rich. A new documentary, Lords of Water, reveals banks and trading companies such as Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, and more are rushing to invest billions in all things water, including ownership of water sources, water usage rights, distribution, and even storage. In December this past year, Wall Street even began trading water as a commodity, like gold or oil, tied to water prices in drought-stricken California. Yeah, shame that water, the source of life, is traded as a commodity. Recently, Water Watchers hosted a walking tour through 16 communities covering more than 300 kilometers to learn about the impacts locally here to groundwater. We saw the degree of destruction of the aggregate industry across this region. We heard from communities opposing mega warehouse projects on farmland. We heard from folks at Landback in Waterloo and from a better tent city in Kitchener. Across all of these communities, there is a common theme. The current colonial structures in place are not doing a good job at protecting the land and waters we all rely on. And we see this happening across the globe. It strikes me that the kind of thinking that has created these structures are not going to be the same kind of thinking that is able to get us out of the problems we are currently facing. We are truly in need of a paradigm shift. And personally, I believe that this can come through the work of decolonizing our hearts and our minds, our institutions, our communities at every level. And by lifting up Indigenous-led initiatives, conservation efforts, and authority. No more with business as usual, not if we care about our collective futures. There's little time right now to speak about our rights, and a great deal of time to embrace our responsibilities. Woo! Just want to say that our slogan at Water Watchers has been that water is for life, not for profit. And I believe at a fundamental level that because all of life on this beautiful planet of ours requires water, it is a common denominator that can pull us together around these really salient and pressing issues we face. So just as water is for life and not for profit, so are our futures, and so are our land, and so are our lifeways of people all around this world. These are not for sale.